You are jealous because White Man Dan has allowed me to be a man again and not you. Sean then shut his cell door, sat on his bed and watched TV. The next day Sean woke up and met all the guys on the landing ready to walk to purgatory for work. Sean was so happy he was a man again. He said hello to the other guys but they all blanked him. White Man Dan led the way as they all walked to the purgatory wing for work. The walk took 10 minutes to get to purgatory. All the men spoke amongst each other but no one spoke to Sean along the way. Sean could see Peter amongst the men but Peter also didn't talk to him either. Once the men all got to purgatory, White Man Dan opened the door. Sean could not believe what he saw through that door. Purgatory was a real-life horror movie. There was blood all over the walls, cream pie stains on the floor and walls, and it was everywhere. Graffiti was all over the walls. He could also hear the sounds of men screaming for help while also hearing the sounds of beds squeaking and loud booty clapping sounds. Purgatory was a living nightmare. Sean could hear inmates screaming as they were getting their cheeks blown out. White Man Dan then walked over to Sean and said, "Welcome to your new home, woman," and that's when Peter and two other guys grabbed Sean and dragged him into a spare cell on purgatory. Two guards also came into the cell and handcuffed Sean's hands to the metal bed frame so he couldn't escape. Sean begged White Man Dan to please let him go but White Man Dan just laughed. White Man Dan then said, "Did you really think I would let a woman like you go? This wing is going to be your new home and you will never ever leave. You are going to make me millions and I'm going to enjoy renting you out to other inmates, and guess what? Your first customer is going to be your ex-prison husband Peter. That night he was roasting and you didn't give up your cheeks to him, so he will be getting it now." Sean then looked at Peter, who had a fat smile on his face. Sean begged Peter to just let him go. He begged White Man Dan to let him back onto the royal wing as he promised to be a submissive wife like the other women on the wing. White Man Dan just laughed and said, "No. Your new home is on this wing now." White Man Dan gathered the rest of the guys minus Peter and left the cell. Peter then closed the door and jumped on the bed. He then ripped off everything Sean had on and said, "I'm going to love this." Sean tried to kick him off but Peter was just too strong. Both of Sean's arms were also handcuffed to the bed frame, so it was extra easy for Peter to take Sean's cheeks. Peter boxed him in the face and then continued to box him for a further 5 times until Sean was knocked out. Sean was on his back on the bed with his feet in the air and he was knocked out cold. Peter then slid his tings inside of Sean and started clapping Sean's cheeks. He was pounding away and was enjoying every moment of it. He continued to pound Sean's cheeks for a further 5 minutes, but while Peter was clapping Sean's cheeks, Sean woke up. He could now feel Peter inside of him pounding away. He could also hear the screams of other inmates on the wing as they were all getting pounded out. Sean felt like he was in a living nightmare as Peter continued to pound his cheeks until he started to feel the nice sensation, and that's when Peter busted a massive load of warm cream pie inside of Sean. Peter then kissed Sean on the forehead and walked out the cell with the biggest smile on his face. Sean had now had his cheeks taken in prison and was wounded. He was in so much pain, but it still wasn't over. In fact, the day had only just begun, because outside of Sean's new cell on Purgatory was a line of 200 inmates waiting to have a turn on Sean. The line was so long it went out of the Purgatory entrance doors and onto the prison grounds. After Peter left the cell, another inmate walked in the cell who was 6 feet tall with a massive smile on his face. Sean could also hear other inmates outside of the cell saying to each other, "I can't wait for my turn." The inmate who was in the cell walked closer to Sean, but Sean shouted saying, "Leave me alone. Stay away from me," but the guy didn't listen and walked even closer until he got to the bed.